Ladies, have you been wanting to make a change, but you don't feel ready? Here's the truth. Readiness is a lie. The model of confidence for women is backward, and we need to flip it. I'm Cara Poppet, author of a new book, Big Freaking Change. After coaching thousands of women, I discovered action gives us confidence, not the other way around. If we wait to feel ready, we'll wait forever. So if you're ready to get unstuck and step into the life you've always dreamed about, visit bigfreakingchange.com right now and order your copy. Welcome to the Big Freaking Change podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of those who took bold action, embraced uncertainty, and transformed their lives without ever feeling ready. I'm your host, Cara Poppet, author of The Big Freaking Change and the creator of the Get Unstuck Cycle of Change model. Each week, we'll sit down with remarkable individuals who have taken bold steps in their lives, personally and professionally, to make meaningful change. Whether you're seeking a career shift, personal growth, or a boost in confidence, our goal is to inspire you to stop waiting and start taking action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Big Freaking Change podcast. I'm your host, Cara Poppet, and I'm so excited to be here with a dear friend, a woman of power, a woman of influence, and really a change maker. Claire, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me, Cara. I'm so excited.
Claire, I'm going to actually read your bio because I want everyone to know the brilliance that you have and who you are as a woman of integrity and power and impact. Claire Masikewich is a marketing and communications professional turned fierce advocate for pediatric cancer research. In May 2023, her career took a pause when her 5-year-old daughter was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma. This life-altering event fueled Claire's mission to raise awareness and fund research in this severely underfunded area. Through Strong Like Sloan Foundation, Claire has helped raise over $155,000 for pediatric cancer research. A testament to resilience, purpose, and living a life aligned with her values, Claire channels her personal struggles and professional expertise into making a difference, proving that even in the darkest times, we can all get through hard things. I love this quote: "You don't know what you're capable of until you're asked to be capable." Welcome to the show, Claire.
Thank you. For the record, I don't know who said that quote. I think I've heard the strong, like you're stronger than you think you are, something. And I'm like, I like the capable. And I feel like, I don't even know, maybe I made it up. So we'll go with that.
It's a strong testament to that, life happens to all of us and we never know what we're made of until you have to deal with it. You have to step up. So let's start with there, Claire. I know it's vulnerable to share your personal story, and I commend you for it because there's so many people that go through heartache and tragedy and trauma, and it shifts so much of our life into making big freaking changes that we didn't want to make. Sometimes we choose change and sometimes change chooses us. So I'd love for you just to kind of share what went through your mind when you got that diagnosis and how you chose to show up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I won't get it too much into the details, but yes, my 5-year-old was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma in May 2023. Certainly a huge shock. Like, people are always like, well, what were the signs and symptoms? And honestly, there wasn't a whole lot aside from just kind of some leg pain she was having, a consistent fever. And then the blood work showed some pretty scary stuff. And I remember having the conversation after we were admitted to the Children's Hospital, and the hematologist was throwing out words like malignant. I'm like, I know what that means. So my husband and I asked him to go in the hallway, and I said, I just wanted to confirm what you're talking about is cancer. And he said, yes. And I'll tell you, if there's something that shakes you to your core as a parent, it's hearing cancer beside your 5-year-old's name. And yeah, in that moment, things certainly changed for us as a family. I was very much a self-proclaimed workaholic, and I was burning the candle at both ends, approaching burnout. So to have this show up, and I was so focused on my career, my husband and I both made the decision that it made sense for me to be the one to go off work, because we knew that that was something that had to be done. She had about 18 months ahead of her of pretty intense treatment, so there was no way we could both keep working full time. And I had enough self-awareness to realize that I couldn't shut off the work brain when I was with Sloan at the hospital. My husband has an incredible work ethic, but he does a much better job of shutting off when he needs to with work. And I couldn't do that. So that was, I think, the first big change that I had to make in that space was taking off the career hat that I had worked so hard for and not leaving it behind by putting it on pause and then putting on a caregiver hat, which was very different. So change in that moment chose me. I did not choose that change.
I watched your journey, Claire, from a distance before I reached out to you. And I couldn't imagine, this is the worst nightmare for any parent when something goes wrong with their child. And you continue to show up and advocate for others and raise funds. And I remember being like, how are you? And you were like, there's hard days, but I'm going to focus on the positive. And you were so positive. You're like, her tests are going to come back positive. And you were just speaking the language and doing the things. And, I think even the awareness that you would default into work and it served you in this purpose of making an impact. And a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that when you're going through it. There's no capacity, but you always seem to find capacity to give back and to make an impact. So I commend you for that. I would love for you to share a little bit about the realization that you had to have boundaries to turn off the working brain, because this is so common with high achieving people and it could be your own business. It could be, you're working, it could be being a full-time mom, but, not turning off the brain. So talk to me about that process.
You know what? It honestly wasn't until this crazy diagnosis that we were hit with that I realized there was an issue, which is so sad. I often think back to the time when she was diagnosed, and I sometimes run through the thought that this was an incredibly rude wake-up call from the universe, which is so sad to think about. But I encourage everybody else to not wait until they have some sort of a life-altering event to make change, because I do feel like that was in a weird way my rock bottom. And going forward, it was just nice to know that I was forced into this change. I was forced to step away. I was forced to leave work to other people. And you know what happened? Nothing. Everything went off seamlessly. The year and a half with me being gone, there was no crazy dilemma or crisis that happened at work. And it was really nice to know that going back into things now that I'm on the other side and Sloan is out of treatment, she's in remission, and I'm gradually making that return to work. It really allows me to set those boundaries because I know that things go just fine if I'm doing my job when I'm supposed to be doing my job and I'm prioritizing my family and myself before everything else. And it doesn't mean that I don't give work my all. I still give work my all.
Yes.
But I give it all that I have for work, not everything.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful as we have a fixed amount of energy that we can expend. And in my book, I talk about managing your energy. So, how we show up in life is really our currency. And I believe our energy is our highest currency because it's how you experience the world and it's how the world experiences you. And I love how you said, I'll give it all my work energy, but there has to be some reserve left for yourself and for your family. And I think that's such a valuable lesson for all of us to just tap into our energy levels. And we have to divide our time up, right? If we're having multiple roles, and if we work from home, sometimes we can just blend in everything and then we realize we're always working. So great awareness there for all of us, and a reminder for us to put boundaries in place, and boundaries are healthy. And I think, as women, we're not really taught that. We're kind of taught, self-sabotage at all costs. And, oh, you're such a great mom. You're so selfless. And it's like, why are we praising that you give yourself at all costs and that makes you a good woman or a good mom or a good wife? So thank you for sharing that. Talk to me a little bit about, the mindset that you had to have to continue to be a strong mother for your daughter in a very vulnerable time.
Mindset was huge for me over the last year and a half. And, I often, people always wonder how you did it. I was like, how did you do it? And it really came down to letting go of what I couldn't control. I couldn't control Sloan's cancer. I couldn't control her treatments, but I could control a few things. And one of those things were my thoughts. And really that comes down to mindset, perspective, and gratitude. And those are three very anchoring things that got me through the last year and a half. Perspective was really big. And I can remember some specific moments when we were in the hospital and I just wanted to leave. Like we were in for some long stays. Like the longest stay we had was about 6 weeks, where Sloan was in for 6 weeks straight. My husband and I spelled each other off, but she was basically stuck in this room for 6 weeks. And there was one point, probably halfway through, I remember we were playing Uno on like the little side bed, and I was miserable and I just couldn't get my headspace in the right spot. I was like, why are we here? When can we go home? There was no end in sight. And in a moment, I changed my perspective and it changed everything, because I thought, there are parents that I know right now in the ICU and they don't know if they're going to leave. There are parents that are at the Rotary Flames House, which is essentially our hospice end of life care here in Calgary, and they're not going to be leaving with their child. There are families who no longer have their child here with them, and all of those families would give anything to be in this room where I am right now. So that was huge. And I really came back to that moment multiple times throughout this journey and thought there are other parents who would give anything to be here with their child. So that was really big. The other one too, when I mentioned gratitude, I feel like gratitude is such a buzzword and it has been for so long. It's adopting an attitude of gratitude is huge when you're going through hard things. And if there's one thing I can encourage for your listeners that might not be going through crazy big change or hard things right now, if you can adopt an attitude of gratitude when things are good, it's a lot easier to hold on to that when things are bad, because it's hard. When things are hard, it's hard to find things that are great you're grateful for. But it's really brought me out of some hard spaces too with Sloan. So I grew up with a lot of anxiety, and a lot of anxieties around irrational thoughts, negative mind talk. So it's been something that I've been battling for years and years and years. But it can be the hardest thing to control, but it's the most impactful once you get a handle on it when you're going through hard things.
Thanks for sharing that, Claire, because I know you're a huge advocate for mental health and, empowering people to do what they can to cope, right? And to manage. And in my book, in the Cycle of Change, I talk about managing your mindset, because all of us are going to have, it might show up as anxiety, it might show up as depression, it might show up as obsessive compulsive, it might show up as self-sabotage, but we all have some part of our mindset that we need to actively manage. And it's something that we have to do forever. It doesn't go away. Talk to me about what you know now about anxiety, depression, and kind of managing the mindset.
Really, for me personally, it all comes down to mindset. And actually, this was a really good test for myself over the last year and a half, because I often had a lot of anxiety around the future, right? It was like, well, what's this decision today? How's it going to impact me 6 months or a year from now? And I got really hung up on the future and what the future looked like. And when you are going through cancer treatment, you really have to take things day by day. And that was a huge personal growth opportunity. And it was often my husband he was usually the one that, didn't worry about what was happening in the future. And I had to bring him in and just remind him that we had to take things day by day. So for anxiety and depression in my life, in my world, how it has always shown up, it's always been fear and worry of the future. And that's going to be something that I have to continue to manage, even more so now, because there are so many unknowns with Sloan. Even though she's in remission, the relapse rate's quite high. It's around 65%. And we can't live our lives like that. And if I can come back to a moment we had in the summer, I remember we were on family vacation, and both my husband and I had a moment together, which doesn't happen often. Usually we're like one's strong and one's sad and flip-flops. But this was a moment that we both had some tears, because it's like we hadn't spoken it out loud before, but we both had this feeling around not what if Sloan relapses, but when she relapses. Just because the relapse rate's so high, that's very much a positive person, but that's sometimes the reality of it. And we decided in that moment that fear is real. But then rather than using that fear as a what if, and we can't do this because what if this happens, we're going to use that fear in a positive way to live our best lives every day. Again, just flipping a switch, changing that mindset and how we approach things. That's how I'm going to manage my anxiety going forward, because I know it's not going to go away.
It's so important to the point of perspective, right? It's not ignoring the fear. It's actually acknowledging it and in a way embracing it like a newborn baby. You look at it in awe and you hold on to it tight rather than try to push it as far away, because it's going to, whatever you resist persists, right? So it's acknowledging it and choosing what you're going to do with it, I think is really powerful.
Yes.
Claire, I know you're a highly successful, a highly ambitious woman, and also a mother. And I think that it's hard enough just being a mom.
Uh,
It's hard enough just being a career woman.
uh-huh,
And I think for a lot of women that do both, we're pulled in different directions.
uh-huh.
And I know for myself, sometimes if I go away for work, I'll be away and I feel a little guilty. I'm like, oh, I'm missing this for my child or that. And I have to remind myself, be where you are, like be where you are right now. And when I'm home, to be really intentional, that it's not always the quantity of time, but it's the quality of times. Sitting down, having my tea, looking at my children, asking them some good questions, instead of like, oh yeah, finishing up an email. Like I'm really, really intentional about my children feeling seen, heard, loved, and valued. What is your best piece of advice for maybe women that are coming into motherhood that also have a promising career? How do we do it? And I don't believe there's balance. I think we
No,
try our best and straddle and do the splits more than we want to admit.
I was gonna say, I feel like balance isn't a real thing either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say, and this I think is a little bit of an unconventional thought, and people talk about it, so it's not completely mind blowing stuff. But as parents and as new moms or moms in general, like you said, I feel like there's a lot of pressure to put everybody else first. But my advice to moms out there, whether you're new or you're kind of in the weeds, I actually believe that you should put yourself first, because if when we talk about, your bucket being filled and you can't pour from an empty cup. So I really hold that belief that if we put ourselves first, and believe it or not, put your relationship with your partner second, then if those things are aligned and they're good, then the things with your kids just come naturally. Like if you're not loving yourself, and if you're having stresses with your partner, that can very much parlay into how things are with your kids. So I believe that's kind of my priority list. It's it's my partner, and it's my kids. It's not that I'm not providing for them, obviously, and I'm loving on them, but making sure that my cup is filled first. And for me, that comes in the way of finding some time with friends when I can, going for coffee. I'm very big into moving your body for mental health. Running got me through some very, very hard times. When we were in for our long stays, I'd actually have my mother-in-law or my mom or Kurt come to the hospital. Even if it was one of my on days with Sloan, where I was with Sloan, for me to just get out. There was a perfect 2.5 kilometers from the children's hospital to the foothills and back to get my 5 kilometer run in. And just that made a world of a difference for me. So just things like that. It's not that you're going off and I'm saying that you're going to run to the spa once a week, but the little things that you can find to fill your bucket will make it easier to give love and energy that you need to your partner and your kids.
It's so true. We had another guest on here, Nina Nastoli, and she talked about the importance, and she's a neuroscientist, that we actually have to get stress out of our body. And that's exactly what you did. You realize there's stress and I need to run to process and get it out of my body. And I think intuitively, I always thought about that, like, yeah, but then when it's proven scientifically that you can't actually release stress until you physically get it out of your body, it was just a game changer for me of like, this is not a luxury. This is a necessity, right? And especially when you're going through a hard time, to really be intentional with that. So that's great that you did that. Claire, I've always admired your ability to connect on a deep level. I've known you for over 25 years, I think.
Something crazy like that.
Yeah, working at World Health Club back in the day, and I just really always appreciated your energy. I think we just connect on many levels, but your energy, you're a go-getter, you're happy, you connect, you're real and you're deep. And I'd love for you to kind of share how you get the courage to show up that way, and also talk about what does confidence look like for you?
Well, I will give credit where credit is due. And I do believe that my ability to connect is in my DNA. My mom is a social worker. She retired, but she's a social worker and always big on feeling the feelings in my household. Growing up, we talked about feeling the feelings. I remember regularly around the dinner table having conversations around, well, let's talk about what your warm fuzzies and your cold pricklies were today.
That's so good.
So that just feel like it's nature versus and nurture, a little bit of both. Like certainly it's in my DNA, but it's also how I was brought up and how I was raised to feel the feelings. And you know what? I think that as we get older, or as I get older, we start to realize that we have less and less time and less energy to give out because of all of the other things, whether it's work and kids, and we have a lot on the go. So for me, having close, deep relationships means so much more now than it did before. And not to say I can't just meet a friend for a coffee and we can shoot the shit, but I'm investing my time where I know people are going to invest in me. And for that, that's getting deep real quick and cutting the surface level, pardon my language.
Yeah.
Because that's where I find connection. And when we talk about how I got through the last year and a half, one of the other things that I felt that I could control was my community and who showed up for me and how they showed up, and the people I knew I could ask for help, and accepting help from people was really important. Mm-hmm. So that's, I guess, the connection and the going deep. It's in my DNA and who I am. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yes. And talk to me about how you define courage.
So for me, courage, it really comes down to believing in myself. There are so many external voices and things that are around us all the time that are not in our control. But one thing that I can control is how I speak to myself and believing in myself. And that's what courage is to me, is having that belief in yourself that you can do hard things and you can get through hard things. And the biggest thing for me is it's not just a matter of surviving, it's how can you thrive even when things are hard. And courage is a huge piece of that.
I love that. And I talk a lot about flexing our courage muscle rather than waiting to feel confident. And most people that want to make a change wait to feel ready, wait to feel confident. And confidence is something we have to work on. And we receive confidence by doing hard things. I believe that probably you experiencing this massive change has actually increased your confidence that you can get through anything.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I was like, yes, that's it. Yeah. You know what? I can think of multiple times throughout my life and probably more early career around doing things and then getting confidence after I've done the things. But this was by far the biggest, I want to call it like a wake up call that girl, you can do hard things and you are capable of doing hard things. And this moment was really defining for me because of all of the anxiety that I've dealt with in the past. Like when I talk about anxiety, I mean, there were times in my early 20s where it was hard for me to stick to one job because I had so much anxiety about going to work. Mm-hmm. So for me, if I were to ask Claire, my 25-year-old self, hey, I think that this is something that might happen to you in the future. Do you think you're going to be able to handle that? I'd be like, hell no, this is not happening. So for me to be able to do what I did, get through what I did, and show up the way I did, all still while loving on Sloan, my husband, and my other daughter as much as I did, I'm so freaking proud of myself for that.
Yeah. Let that land, sister. To be freaking proud of yourself, and you're still choosing to show up, right? And it's a choice. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today about motherhood as our already super challenging, turning off our mind, setting in some boundaries to protect our energy, to understand that we can do hard things, to understand that, life happens to all of us, and it's the moment that we decide to change our perspective and our mindset that will really help us get through any hard time. So you're walking proof of that. Claire, I'd love for our listeners to support Strong Like Sloan. Tell us a little bit about it and how we can get involved.
For sure. So Strong Like Sloan is a charitable organization here in Alberta. So it's different than a registered charity or a nonprofit, which I've quickly learned all the things about nonprofits. So we do a lot of our fundraising efforts through the Alberta Children's Hospital Foundation, as well as other organizations locally, like helping families handle cancer and kids cancer care. So I would say the best way for listeners to kind of get up to speed with what we're doing and who we're supporting, just following us on Instagram, which is at Strong Like Sloan. So you can find us there and see what we're up to and all the things. You should join the Strong Like Sloan run team for the Calgary Marathon, which we're going to be kicking off again here soon.
And what is the date for that again, Claire?
It's actually been split into 2 days. That was just announced. So it's May 24th and May 25th.
Okay.
And last year we had 185 people. We raised just over $112,000. And this year I'm going to say it here, I think for the first time, I'd love to have 200 team members and I would love to raise $200,000 for pediatric cancer.
Amazing. You're making a mark in this world and you're going to leave with legacy. And what I love about you is you lead with grace, understanding, and compassion. And I've, even in hard times in my life, you've shown up and you say the right things at the right time that I need to hear. And I think that's the power of sisterhood and surrounding yourself with people that see you, that go deep real quick. No bull crap, the messy, the raw, the crazy part. And there's always connection through all of that. So thanks for everything that you do, Claire. Listeners, remember to embrace the challenges that come our way when change happens to us. Remember, your mindset is what's going to guide you through. And remember to lead with courage. Continue doing the work to make your big freaking change. Bye for now. We hope you enjoyed this episode and would be so grateful if you could share it with someone else that could benefit from it. Let's remember to change our relationship to change itself and take aligned action. If we want to make meaningful changes in our lives, we need to embrace stepping into the next version of ourselves in the process. Remember, stop waiting to feel ready and start taking action today.